Here we go, Zach. Here you go see the bees. Ta-da! Woo. Welcome back to the Justin and Juby channel,
where we're discussing Bee Apiary and bees.
Dun, 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 dun. With the help of my two beautiful ladies. So we're here, parked at a friend's house in Raleigh, North Carolina. We're gonna dive deep. We're gonna talk about bee facts, business, bees on the road. So, here we go.
I'm Juby and this is Justin, and meet our sweet nugget Azalea. We've been living in our self-converted school bus since 2018, and after a year and a half of building our home, we've finally hit the road. Join us for the ride as we continue our adventures in our big red pepper.
I appreciate all the folks that sent out questions about Bee. We picked some of those questions and we're gonna dive in. So here we go.
Hey, how did you get the idea? When did you start? And how did you get customers for bee caring?
Must have started in like 2014 or 2015. Started with like one hive. I was producing honey and adding more hives to my backyard. It was going crazy. I started to make honey. There was a bunch of buckets of honey sitting in the living room, and I still remember it. Juby was like, babes, seriously, you gotta do something with this honey. We gotta get it out of this living room. She helped me find bottles, she helped me design a label, and then we started putting it into stores in downtown Durham. A couple years later, I had some folks reach out to me via email and asked to put hives in their yards and maintain them. At the time I was super busy, but I decided just to give it a go. We started at 3 locations. I would maintain the hives monthly, and the folks that were hosting them would come out and join me too. This is before there was any program built out or I had any idea of what exactly it was gonna look like. So after we went through a year, I sent out some surveys and got some really good feedback, and essentially decided that it was time to really push this out and make it available to more people. And so in 2019, in the beginning of the year, I started building a website and all of this marketing stuff, Facebook page, really started to get the word out there. We went from 3 hosts up to like 22 hosts, and we installed hives all across the triangle, and it was absolutely stellar. The community like really stood up behind this and really supported us when we were essentially like nobody. It's been a year since then, and it's been an absolute roller coaster ride, and a good one. Now that we're about to hit spring, we're beginning to go through that process again, just replicating, bringing more people on board, and just trying to figure out how we can continue to improve the program.
What services does the business provide?
Absolute amazing freaking awesomeness. That's what we do. But on a serious note, what we do is we install bees in your backyard, and we maintain them year-round. We use our equipment, we use our bees, install them, feed them, extract the honey, replace the queen if necessary, or replace the hive if necessary. If the host wants to come out, we suit you up and we get you in that bad boy too. If you want to get hands-on and you want to learn and you want to educate yourself, we are there. It's an open door policy. You know, some folks, they host and they can't make it out at all. They just want to know they can support the bees. Some folks want to learn all about beekeeping and take over the management themselves. Whatever suits your fancy, we're there for. Honey that's produced, we divide it 50-50 with our host. We send out newsletters, we send out hive updates. Honestly, I feel like the more folks that we educate and create an experience around bees that they remember, the more people that we can turn into bee advocates. And so that's where the real value lies. Create education and experience so we can create bee advocates. Some of the most beautiful things working as a beekeeper, just seeing the resilience of bees and the beauty of bees in beekeeping, the intricacies of what they do as a hive and as a whole. If a bee is sick and having a hard time, it will actually leave the hive and not come back, so that it prevents the rest of the hive from also becoming sick. They work as this community, this super organism, and each hive functions in a way to support the greater good of the hive. And to me, that's just something that's beautiful, and it's amazing. And honestly, I think us as human beings can really take a lot away from that. We are a unit, and if we work together for the greater good of our kinds, then we can go some really amazing places. And bees have shown that too. They've been resilient for thousands and thousands of years, and they bring an enormous amount of value to our agriculture. And they're just beautiful creatures. I mean, I go inside a hive and everything just blurs out. It's my happy space. I love it.
And Azalea. And her favorite thing to do lately, sit inside our cars and drive them.
Where are the bees kept and how often do you have to tend to them?
We've got installations all over the triangles in North Carolina. We're looking at Apex, Raleigh, Durham, Chapel Hill. Normally we'll install them in folks' backyards, people who want to host, and we'll install anywhere from 1 to 3 hives. When we go to tend to them, we'll go out roughly every 4 weeks. During the winter, that's a little bit different. Oftentimes it's too cold to go and visit.
What do you have to do on the road?
So all the boring stuff, all the emails, invoices, setting up speaking events, organizing a Google Drive, doing PowerPoint slideshows, sourcing equipment, and you know, all of the kind of behind the scenes stuff on the computer. We still do a lot of communication with our hosts. We'll create newsletters, keep people updated on what's happening during that time of the year in the beehive. Try to continue educating folks even through the winter.
Justin, what made you decide to do this?
First and foremost, my passion lies with the honeybees. You know, they're facing a lot of challenges these days, and for me, I am in my happy place when I'm in a hive and working with bees. The beauty of the inner workings of the hive and what they do for us and our environment are like unparalleled. I remember doing so many speaking events and so many tabling events and speaking to folks who really were interested in learning more and being able to host a hive in their yard. Recognizing that there was a need there in the community, I was like, all right, I have the ability to take care of bees. I really enjoy working with people and teaching people. I don't see why I can't put the 2 and 2 together and figure out how we can bring this to tons of people who might not otherwise ever experience bees and beekeeping. And once we had people signing up, it was just kind of a light bulb moment where it was like, I can do what I love, pursue my passion, and then bring value to the community. Those 3 things are really what came together to make it a success.
Who takes care of the bees while you guys are on the road?
Whenever we were traveling, I would fly back to come and manage the bees. It was a bit taxing. You know, I'd have to leave the girls for up to a week at a time, come back home and focus solely on beekeeping and taking care of the bees. And it was tough to try to balance the travel as well as having to manage hives. So during the winter, like I said, there's not much you can do in a hive. So I didn't need to come back. Now that's another reason why we're back in the spring, so I can come back and tend to the hives and give them the attention and love that they need. We're actually now looking for a beekeeper. So we'll be hiring a beekeeper in the spring, training them, and they will take over the management of the beehives. You gonna rev it up? Ooh, yeah. Is that a Hemi? Cummins 5.9? They got these new fashionable cowboy beekeeper hats. What do you think?
Superfly.
Let's see what this thing is.
Nice.
I think I got some on my eye.
Yeah, looks like you didn't put it on right, baby. You need to wear those more often,
Yeah.
I suppose.
So some folks asked why I don't wear protective gear. A lot of the bees that we work with are extremely docile, and I feel comfortable going into a hive and being able to know when the hive is getting a little bit more defensive and when it's time to put on protective gear. That's just because I've had like many years working inside the hive one-on-one. Bees don't necessarily want to harm you or be defensive because they know if they sting you, they're gonna die. When you're in a hive and they're beginning to get defensive, they'll bump up against your wrist, they'll bump up against your head to let you know, like, look, we're not into what you're doing. You know? And we use a little bit of smoke to keep them calm. The reason we use the smoke is because they have an alarm pheromone, which literally smells like ripe bananas or like banana Laffy Taffy. They exude that to tell the other bees that there is a threat. And so when we use the smoke, it disrupts that communication channel so that they can't spread that alarm pheromone, and in turn it keeps them calm and easy for a beekeeper to work with them, but harms them in no way, which is really useful for us.
How do I get a beehive in my yard, and are they difficult to care for?
If you want to do it with us and you're located in the triangle, we have a form on our website you can fill out. We'll receive it and we'll talk to you more about doing a property assessment and figuring out if it matches up for you and for us to install and maintain a hive at your property. If you are looking to get into beekeeping yourself, what I always suggest to folks is first and foremost, go to a class and get in with your local beekeeping association. There's a lot you can learn about beekeeping. I'm literally still learning and making mistakes myself. It's a very intricate process, figuring out how the bees work and what the challenges they're facing are today and how to deal with those challenges and keep beehives alive. 40 years ago, you could put them in a box and you wouldn't even have to touch them and they would thrive. Nowadays, that's just not the case. Read books, learn before you start. After you get started, find somebody that can help you and mentor you, help you find equipment, help you source bees, mentor you along the way. So if you have questions or you're confused as to what to do, you have a resource there.
Do you bring the bees with you in the bus? And is it possible to have your own little hive on the go?
We wanted to bring bees on the bus. We actually brainstormed it out to try to figure out how we could do it, like on the rooftop, maybe put them underneath here and slide them out when we need to. But in reality, moving a bus around and traveling full time doesn't make sense. It's not good for the bees. Is there a way to? More than likely, if you are going to be more stationary. Putting a hive on top of your bus, maybe on a platform, that's totally reasonable if you want to do something like that. Just make sure that the bees are safe and you yourself are safe. That you're not going to get stung and fall off the bus or something. That's crazy.
I want to know the cool facts about bees and honey that you don't really hear about.
The makeup are about 90 to 95% female bees. 5% roughly are male bees. We call them drone bees. One queen bee. The drones don't do any work. They literally are there to eat the resources and to mate with queens. A queen herself, she will leave the hive once to go on a mating flight. She'll run into some male bees in the middle of the air and she'll literally mate with anywhere from 12 to 18 male bees, one after one after one. After mating, the male bees drop off and die. And then she goes back into the hive and stays there the rest of her life and lays up to 1,500 eggs a day. It's unreal. Another thing too that's savage about the male bees is that if they find a queen to mate with, they instantly die after mating. If they don't, and it turns into fall and winter, the females will actually clip their wings and kick them out just because they're expendable and they can make more next spring. And they basically don't want to support them through the winter.
So you can only survive one season if you're a dude?
Yep.
Oh my gosh, that is so crazy.
So it's like a women's party every winter. Yeah, just a bunch of women hanging out.
Do you still agree that should apply to the way that we run society in the world?
Slow down, slow down there. All right, so bees are true architects in the nature of the way that they build the wax. This is their honeycomb, built of wax that they create. Bees build these hexagon cells. They fit together perfectly and created in a way that takes most advantage of the space that they have available. Also structurally, the hexagons connected together are extremely strong. You can't tell it from here, but a frame sits like this, and these cells are actually positioned so that they go downwards, so that they hold the honey and they can be filled up. Once they fill these cells up with honey, they'll actually cover it with a wax capping, and that's when it officially goes from nectar to honey. They dehydrate it to below 18% water content, cover it with a capping, and honey, once it becomes that honey, never goes bad. They found it in Egyptian tombs, and it's still good and edible. Honey is an amazing, amazing thing. Honey is our natural sweetener. It's absolutely amazing for you. You wonder, how many times can we pull honey from a hive? In this area, 1 time a year. In tropical areas, sometimes you can pull 2, maybe even 3 times a year. It takes 12 bees to make a teaspoon of honey. When you're looking at this 5-gallon bucket, one hive can make anywhere from 0 all the way up to, I've seen even 50 pounds, which is basically a whole bucket. An entire hive, which can be about 60,000 bees, can make, somewhere in the realm of this much honey, which is a lot of honey, but you gotta remember there's 60,000 bees in there and they're working all year to make that. The takeaway though is the amount of value you're getting. I mean, the liquid gold that is in that bottle took a year to make, took hundreds and thousands of bees to make, and it took the beekeeper hours and hours and hours to maintain a healthy colony, deal with Mother Nature, as well as extract and bottle it. And so when it comes to honey, I advise most people to go out, look on the internet, look at your local beekeeping association, find a beekeeper, send them a message, Figure out what his practices are, if they're good and kind and sustainable, and then try to source your honey from a local beekeeper. That's the best way. A lot of the market has been flooded with these additives they add into the honey. There's an episode on honey on Netflix. It's called Rotten.
What is the process from honey to jar, and how do you keep it sterile?
As a beekeeper, it's an important thing that we leave enough honey for the bees, and so that's first and foremost. Anything that's excess of that, we can take. It takes 12 bees to make a teaspoon of honey. If we can have a healthy hive, that is normally one of the biggest links to honey production. And then in the spring, that's when we focus on making sure that the bees have what they need to produce honey. If the bees do produce honey, there's a lot of variables there. It's the weather is held, last frost of the spring. But if there's enough, we will go to the hive, probably around June or July. We will have added these boxes on top of the hive, so that's where they can store their honey. We'll take those boxes off and leave the bees behind, and then we'll take it to an extractor, which is basically this big metal tub that spins frames around in a circle, spin it, spin it, spin it, and sling the honey out of the frames. And that honey has to come down out of the centrifuge. That has to be filtered. We just do minimal filtering just to get the wax particles out. We don't try to filter out any pollen or any of that other good stuff. Then we put it into a bottle, put a label on it, and then take it to stores. It's a huge labor-intensive process.
Where can you buy your honey?
We have it in a variety of stores in Durham, but we're actually going to be moving away from putting it into stores and focusing more on taking the honey that is produced and doing partnerships with local businesses to create products. Folks still want to be able to purchase some of our local honey, which is awesome. We have got it stocked on the Moonflower Child website. You can find the different honey products that we have. I would highly recommend the chunk honey. One of my favorites. You get not only the honey that's been extracted, but you get a little piece of chunk comb inside of it, which is delicious.
Do the bees get harmed?
For us, our real focus year in and year out is to keep the bees healthy and to keep the bees happy. We're here to be stewards, to manage the hives in a way that's going to make them healthy and make them successful, and hopefully create even more beehives down the road. We don't harm the bees. There's a variety of commercial folks who tend to tens of thousands of bees, and I would say that some of their practices probably aren't the most sustainable and probably aren't great for longevity of bees and beehives. It's more of a production type mindset. We're a small outfit, and so we focus each hive singularly, and we always maintain that the top priority is bee health. Now, enough with the questions. Let's go beekeep. Hope you guys enjoyed a little bit of insight into what I do on a day-to-day basis. Bees, man, they're magical. They're unbelievable. Love them a lot. And it was really, really fun to take you guys into my world of bees. So, until next time,